Heavenly Father, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for the ability of government that we can gather, that we can have civil discourse. We pray that you'll continue to watch over all those that attend, the department heads, the boards, they make important decisions for the people who need that. We pray that you'll continue to lead and guide us, our minds as well as our hearts. Help us and forgive us of our sins in Christ.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. Bond roll call.
Commissioner Hartline? Commissioner Teller?
Here.
Commissioner Foster?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Hilton?
Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We have the regular session minutes for July the 13th, 2018. Does everybody have a chance to look at those? Make a motion to approve the minutes. Second?
Second.
Commissioner Teller?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
We have executive session minutes for July the 13th, 2018. Does everyone have a chance to look at those? That was motion.
Make a motion to approve them as written and keep them closed.
Second.
Commissioner Teller?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is building permits. Kevin?
Got one this morning. It's for Sandra Brust, 0133-00476E. It's for a pole barn, no floodplain issues in a previously subdivided property. It's recommended for approval.
Make a motion to approve the building permit.
Second.
Commissioner Teller?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Do anything else for us? That's it. Okay. Thank you. Under county finances, Darren, do you have anything?
Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Basically, just, I know the broad statement, how are we getting as far as, I know, we're a little bit late, but how are we doing on
So I would say that cash flow is not in the red stage, but in the orange stage. We need to be paying attention to it. I think what's important to note is that if we would have made two changes that we've made over the past few years, we'd be in a lot of hurt. And those two big changes are the fund accounting. In the past, we kept every account has its own, every fund has its own checking account. We call it the coffee can accounting. We put everything in a coffee can and we pull it out when we need it. We pulled all those together into fund accounting, which is what most effective governments do. And that kind of pools some resources that some funds that carry large balance can help float other ones that are having a lower balance for a period of time. That, and then also the reserves, right? So part of the reserves is to mitigate the effects of a disaster to come, but also to help the cash flow. We know every year in the spring and summer things are going to start to get a little tight because we get so much of our revenue in Q3 and Q4 in about a 60-day window. and we kind of live off of that with, the rest of the year. We don't, the rest of the revenues we bring in isn't enough to break even every month, so really we need those big property tax deposits to keep us going. So, we have about $1.1 million in reserves. Without those reserves, right now, the general fund balance is negative, give or take $600,000, $600,000. Without that, you would have those mass layoffs we had every spring and summer historically, 10 years ago and beyond, where it's happening every year, you come to the seasonal layoffs for the summer. So those things have kept us afloat. You mentioned that things are a little bit late, taxes are about a month and a half, 2 months later than they should be. Normally we'd be doing a deposit right now, this week, so we'd have another $1 million, $1.1 million in the operating account. We wouldn't be having any concerns about what we're able to do. As it is, that fund has a balance of about $500,000. I pull it up, but Wi-Fi isn't working, and my tablet doesn't work, and computers have memory anyway, so the whole host of IT issues we're having, so I'll testify to those today. But off my memory, it was about $500,000 today right now, but considering we run about a $100,000 deficit every month, we're talking by the time we do a tax disbursement, we'll be at about $250,000 or less, and that's in the operating account, which houses again all of our funds, IMRF, liability insurance, general fund, obviously. So all of our operating funds are kind of in this one operating account. So that's kind of running everything in the county other than ambulance and highway right now. And so we need to be alert. I don't know that we have to sound all the alarms, but what happens is when we kind of have this plan for how we're going to get through a year with cash flow, when we stretch out that deposit, that tax deposit by 2 months, it puts a real strain on that cash flow process. And that's what we're feeling now is, if we were depositing money right now, we wouldn't have any issues. We got through it, it's fine. But it's that next 2 months that has me just on alert a little bit about how it's going to look that first week of September, last part of August.
So we're a little bit closer than we'd like to be, but given anything unforeseen, we still should be okay.
Yeah, we're not gonna be at 0 in September, so long as the tornado doesn't come through, right? Luckily, we don't have to deal with hurricanes too much. So, barring a disaster like that, we'll get there. But this isn't where we want to be. We've worked too hard to put ourselves in a situation like this.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, under old business, we have an ordinance imposing cable video service provider fee. We've had the state's attorney to review this. Angie, do you have anything that you want to add to this ordinance? Basically, pretty much a standard ordinance.
Nope.
Has everyone had a chance to look at it? Any questions? We have a motion to approve.
Make motion to approve the service provider fee for. Second.
Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Also, under old business, we have, resolution appointing members to the Union County Board of Review. We have Tammy here this morning. And the 3 members of the board have been on there for several years and.
They were serving when I started.
Right. And they've always done a good job for us. I haven't heard any complaints myself. It's all been good, so. Does anyone have any questions? Then I'll make the motion to appoint Jim Haney, Andrew Clark, and Jeffrey Robinson to members of the board, Union County Board of Review.
Second.
Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Under new business, I'm gonna go ahead and drop down to, Southern Seven Health Department update, Nancy Hall.
Tracy Walker. Tracy's our mental health director. Actually, what we wanted to talk to you today about is updating our food ordinance. I think we mentioned that when we were here a couple months ago to give the annual report. The state of Illinois is moving to the FDA food code. Actually, we moved there essentially July 1st as far as our inspections go. But we have to update the food ordinance to be in compliance with our with the state of Illinois requirements. And Tracy has sent the ordinance. We're doing this in all 7 counties. And Tracy has sent the ordinance to your state's attorney. He did that a couple months ago to give state's attorney a chance to look at it. Have you heard from him? Have you heard back from the state's attorney? But we've got time to do this. We've got to get this in place by September 1st. So you've got a chance to review it. You don't have to pass it today by any means, but you've got a chance to review it and come back at a later date and pass it. So Tracy will give you a copy, and then just want to review the highlights with you, if that's fine. And I apologize for my voice. I've got sinus stuff going on.
Like I said, this is a completely brand new ordinance. I'll just kind of hit the highlights, but there is quite a few differences in here. Bottom of page 1 just is a reference to where the Illinois Food Code can be found online. They adopted parts of the old code and then also parts of the federal code. So it's kind of 2 pieces, basically. They wanted to keep a little bit of the old state code, and then the majority of the new federal code is the reason for several items there. One thing I do want to mention, bed and breakfasts, highlighted on page 2. We do not are not required to inspect bed and breakfast. They are in the code and the actual process procedures for them to, as far as how they handle their food, is in their own code, in the bed and breakfast code. So just wanted to point that out. If we have a complaint, then we do get to go in and check it out and see what's going on. But
So, okay, so no one inspects bed and breakfast?
not at this
Unless
time. That's correct, unless there's a complaint. Yeah, the way that works. Yeah, and there's criteria as far as what a bed and breakfast is, but yeah, right now nobody is actually going in there on a regular basis, So yeah. Okay. To turn back to page. Actually, page 5 just talks about our licensing requirements. We do require an annual food code or an annual food permit in our for all of our establishments. That's January 1 to December 31. That's when that runs, and it has to be renewed again come January. One of the things that we try to make sure we've got everyone permitted. A little bit of a challenge right now with some of the new food trucks and stuff popping up, and more food trucks being used. So, but we do permit those too. We, like I said, we do have an annual permit for. One thing on page 6, paragraph 2, we went to just a flat fee as far as if they're late paying their permit. We used to charge it was a percentage, and that was confusing. It was a percentage of the renewal fee. So we just went to a flat $50 once they're late in renewing their permit. So just kind of a cleanup process there. Section 2.06, license suspension. There's a due process procedure if they don't agree with what my sanitarians are doing or don't agree with my decision, then obviously they got a due process. It would go up to the executive director. There'd be a hearing. So there's always a procedure as far as making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, or if a restaurant doesn't agree with our decisions. A lot more information in the code now, a lot more requirements as far as what we have to look at. So, but they still have a procedure. They don't agree with this. They still have a due process procedure that can be handled. Those concerns can be handled. So, back on page 8, I just want to explain just a little bit about our license classifications. we're required to classify our restaurants, once every year. And we classify those into a high, medium, or a low-risk, establishment. If it's a high-risk establishment, we're required to go in and inspect those 3 times a year. If they have enough certified managers, we can waive the 3rd one, except for nursing homes or anybody that would serve an immunocompromised population. We still have to do those 3 times a year, so. Medium risk restaurants, we were required to inspect once per year. They have to have 1 certified manager. And low risk, establishments, which, bars may just sell, candy bar, something fairly simple, prepackaged type foods. We were required to inspect them once every other year. So it depends on the risk of what they're selling, the food that they're selling. If it's high risk, medium risk, or low risk, it's kind of the way that works, and then how often we're actually in there inspecting them. So, any questions about that? Just kind of want to explain, make sure everybody understood that.
I know that sometimes on a television station, they'll give it like a number
Yes.
associated with the business. Some are high and some are low.
Right.
What, like when they get in the low 80s, or what constitutes rechecking or?
Well, the way that work has worked in the past, when we went in and done an inspection, we gave them a score based on, 100 is perfect. Now, if it was a critical violation, it would be a critical, meaning something that could actually cause a foodborne illness. It would take off like 5 points or 4 points. Less critical, violation might take off 1 or 2 points. So that's how that score was figured. I'm glad you brought that up though, because starting here July 1, when we switched to the new form, which allows us to inspect based on the new code, it doesn't have a score. And so we don't agree with that. All it does is and then they're not even called critical violations anymore, they're called risk factor violations. It adds them up, so you got 4 or 5, whatever the number is, that's all that's added up at the top. So the public is not able to see a score, and we don't like that as the health department, just because the public can't just glance. I mean, our inspections, our permit are supposed to be posted, and so the public's just not able to glance and see, okay, last time we were in there, what kind of shape was that restaurant in? So we're hoping the state will eventually reconsider that, but not at this time that we're aware of anyway. So, but yeah, I don't know how that's going to, what kind of situation it's going to create for the news reporting there, because it's going to make it more complicated for them for sure. So yeah, that's pretty popular news there. A lot of people watch that,
Yes.
and it's a pretty neat deal. So I'm hoping that, maybe they'll change back where they do put a score on there. So, any other questions about our risk categories? We did add on section 210, if we find anyone that is operating without a license, there is a fine of $250 for that. Social media has made it pretty easy to set up your own restaurant or cooking out of your home, which, that's prohibited. And so that's kind of the reason for that, but we do see that once in a while where somebody's set up and just cooking out of their home, or just, without a license, not aware that they need to, be permitted through us and be inspected through us. So that's the reason for that. Section, on page 9, section 212, employee health. I just want to make a quick comment on this. We're now required, our inspectors are now required to monitor and look and see if the restaurant is allowing someone to work that would be sick or ill in the establishment. The code basically says that depending on what type of illness they may have, there are certain illnesses they can continue to work, but just not handle food. There are certain illnesses they cannot work at all. They got to be sent home. So, and there's a listing of those illnesses in the code. If we would run into that, we would see someone, my inspectors would see someone that is ill, and we have concerns about that, we're going to ask for a doctor's slip. We're not going to, we're going to do our best to try to figure out what's going on, but it's on them to handle that and deal with employee illnesses. But it's something that we now have to start looking at. So, but like I said, we'll ask for a doctor's slip just to, if we have any concern about what's going on, we got someone who's sick in the establishment that's working there. So, That, okay. On the very back, page 11, there is a couple of things. There's a, section 305 deals with, penalties. That is, and you'll notice in there, there's a penalty that can be up to $1,000 per day per offense. That again is, that would be a pretty unusual, and if we got to that point with an establishment that did not want to work with us, obviously we'd be getting hold of your state's attorney, determining, what's going on. But this just gives us the teeth to make sure that they comply. Very rarely do we have that happen, but once in a while we'll have somebody that just doesn't want to comply with the code and with the law. So, that's the reason for that. We are going to be doing more follow-ups, more re-inspections. And so right now for each follow-up, for the first follow-up, we charge $25, second one's $50, third one is $75. We're going to waive the first one going forward just because we're going to be doing more with this new code. And so just a little bit of a change there. Like I said, we'll be in the restaurants a little bit more just because there's more we got to look at. And if we find something, we got to make sure it gets taken care of. Any questions? I kind of covered all that pretty quick, but.
Are any of these, the stuff you're changing up and so forth, that the state's kind of looking at, is any of this stuff state mandated or is just your own?
Oh, no, pretty much all this is state mandated. I mean, when they switched in 2016, when they switched to the federal food code, that changed everything. And so that's why we're having to kind of catch up. We've spent a good part of a year and a half now just transitioning over to this, and we're pretty close. We feel like we're finally about to get through it, so, yeah. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Thank you
So
very
we
much.
need it adopted by September 1st,
Angie, we can get that down, get with Tyler on it, and see where he's at.
Be sure to give us a call if there's any.
Yeah, if there's any question. I think that he did ask me for a electronic copy, but I haven't heard anything else or got any questions or anything on it, so, yeah.
And I think we had it adopted by
Four
four
other counties.
other counties, they've already adopted. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bobby, you guys have a copy of it? He gave you a copy of it? Okay.
Yes.
And we can send more copies if you need.
I've got extra copies here, if you if I can leave a few here.
Don't.
Thank you.
Let's go back up to approving payment of the bills report. Everyone had a chance to look at the bills. Are there any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I'm just gonna add to what Aaron was speaking to a while ago and ask, everybody's always been good about it, but like you said, being in an orange state, not a red, but all the office holders and department heads pay attention to what they're doing and not make any expenditures that they don't have to. Most people look at this and do that. And make a vow that next year that we will be on track, since we've learned a few things and in this process. And I guess I can say this is not gonna happen again. I make a motion to approve the bills.
Second.
Commissioner Tolan?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Next on the agenda, we have a resolution appointing directors of the Union County Hospital District Board. There are currently 3 vacancies, and we have 2 that have said that they would like to be reappointed. Carol Duke, and Clayton Suggs. Duke and Clayton Suggs to the Union County Hospital District Board.
Commissioner Color,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is, presentation of the electricity rates for the county. So, you're up.
Thank you. I need to grab one of these. I didn't keep one, okay, I didn't keep one for myself, so I can speak to that. First off, good morning, and we appreciate the confidence you've had with us for the last year, supplying your electricity needs. I've been in contact recently with both Angie and Vonda regarding the rates, which you see in front of you. We have not gotten rates for a couple of the suppliers there at the bottom. We expect them yet today. However, I don't expect them to be any better than what we currently have here on a 12-month contract period, which is through Home Field Energy. Currently, you are paying a rate of 4.524 cents through AEP, which is your current supplier through us, AGE, as your broker. You'll see that the home field rate for a 12-month contract period is slightly less. I did not do the math on your total kilowatt usage and the difference in cost savings, but I know there will be hundreds of dollars over the course of the 12-month period were you to authorize Home Field Energy as your new energy supplier. We can supply that contract today if you were so inclined to vote on today. We can also supply pricing for you any other given day that you might request it. Your contract will expire next month, so it's something you'll want to address quickly, if not today. Is there any questions?
Anybody have anything?
Our contract now is for a year, right? That's
Yes.
correct. Yeah. Yeah, we have, we always offer 24 and 36 months, but as I recall from last year, when we went through this process with you, that 12-month was the preferred term.
Yes.
So that's why I speak to 12 months. And the 12-month rate, obviously, you're being the lowest rate through Home Field and lower than your current rate, so it'll be a cost savings for the county.
Okay. And you're saying these rates are good through August? Or good through?
These rates are good through the end of today. So they're subject to change daily. These prices, we've held these prices over today. We actually supplied these prices yesterday morning. So we're holding them through the end of today if you were to make a decision today. However, we can refresh these rates at any day that you choose. There is, of course, a possibility that they won't be the same. And that's true, that's just a market-driven rate. It's a publicly traded commodity, so we're subject to that as well, just like anybody else as a broker.
The way it's on the agenda, we're taking the presentation.
Sure.
I could ask if we come on the agenda that, we actually adopt those rates. So
Okay.
I think we'll have to wait one more meeting
Okay.
before we can actually do that. Do you have a date on that? On,
The next meeting? August the 10th?
Okay.
How these rates compared to like the last 30 days, if you remember, 2 months?
They're down. I mean, they're staying down. I don't expect a spike. As I tell people, when I talk about rate increases or rate decreases, in my world, that's hundreds of a cent. So it's not a great lot, whether it moves up or down. However, It's been down. I expect it to stay down for probably the foreseeable future, meaning next several months. However, we do expect that to slowly increase over the next 12 months. And then in the future as well. It's just a market-driven force, and right now there's a lot of excess capacity, which is keeping the cost down.
Yeah, I noticed one of the bidders kind of kicked that quite a bit in the second and third years.
Yeah.
So they're anticipating some.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're seeing that throughout all our suppliers as well. And even Ameren as well, they're in the same boat, because they have to buy electricity now just as we do as a broker. They don't produce anymore. That's the market-driven factor of the deregulation. So it's been good for all our clients, of course, because it's keeping the cost down. However, there are, additional costs that they're going to experience over time. Plant closures, et cetera. And the kind of the war on coal, so to speak. So a lot of these plants are coal driven. So as they get pressure, they'll have to raise their prices over time.
Okay. Well, we will put it on our next agenda to adopt it. So, I don't know if that'll work.
8:10? Sure. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we'll put it back on, I'll be on the agenda on 8:10, correct? Okay, so we'll bring pricing back that day,
Okay.
and we'll have the other pricing, we'll get those later today anyway, but now that once we have them, we can refresh them at any time, so.
Oh.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any committee reports? And is there any other business? Does anybody have anything they need to go into executive session for? Okay. Any public comments?
Yeah, Bobby,
Yes.
I would take this time to thank Tom for all his work and stuff. He brings up food stuff and pantry from the farmer's market.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
Appreciate that. Thanks. Does any of the county officers have anything they want to say? It's very quiet. Okay, Sean, you have anything? No? Any motion?